वन टू थ्री वन। वन टू थ्री। आ रही है आवाज? एक दो तीन, एक दो तीन। Hello.
Please rise for the national anthem.
जनगणमन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल गंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उज्जल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Honorable Vice President of India and President IIPA, Sri Jagdeep Dhankar ji, Honorable Union Minister and Chairman IIPA Executive Council, Dr. Jitendra Singh ji, dignitaries on dais, ladies and gentlemen, Namaskar and good afternoon. Today is the day of Thanksgiving for IIPA. On this day, 29th March 1954, IIPA was established, and on this occasion, we pay tribute to our founding fathers, and that's why this day is known as Founders' Day in the history of IIPA. As a mark of respect to the first President of India, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, who inaugurated this building on 31st January 1959, IIPA has started an annual memorial lecture in his name since last year, and today is the second Dr. Rajendra Prasad annual memorial lecture. We have been blessed today with the gracious presence of Honorable Vice President of India and President IIPA, Honorable Union Minister and Chairman IIPA Executive Council, Sri Sunil Kumar Gupta ji, Secretary to Honorable Vice President of India, Sri S.N. Tripathi ji, DG IIPA, and a galaxy of luminaries in the audience like Sri Shekhar Dutt ji, former Governor of Chhattisgarh, Dr. Harshvardhan, former Union Minister, Sri S.S. Kshatriya ji, former Chief Secretary of Maharashtra, Sri V. Srinivas ji, Secretary DARP ji, Sri Bharat Lal ji, DGNC ji, and other senior officers of 48th APPA participant, officers from Bihar Civil Services, IIPA faculty, officers, staff, and IIPA members. We extend a very warm welcome on this auspicious day. Today, we have the presence of a special guest also, Dr. Ashok Prasad, who is the great-grandson of Dr. Rajendra Prasad, the first President of India, with us in the second row. Now I take the opportunity to request the Honorable Minister to welcome the Honorable Vice President of India with a shawl and a special memento. Now I request the Director General IAPA to welcome the Honorable Minister with a shawl and a special memento. Now I request the Director General of IAPA to welcome Sri Sunil Gupta ji with a traditional IAPA Angvastra. Now I invite Director General IAPA for his welcome address.
नमस्कार, गुड आफ्टरनून, सुस्वागतम। भारत के महामहिम उपराष्ट्रपति एवं भारतीय लोक प्रशासन संस्थान के अध्यक्ष माननीय श्री जगदीप धनखड़ जी, आज की व्याख्यान माला के मुख्य वक्ता और हमारे प्रमुख मार्गदर्शक महोदय, हम भारतीय लोक प्रशासन संस्थान के समस्त परिवार समूह की तरफ से और हृदय की अंतरतम गहराइयों से आपके शुभ आगमन पर मान्यवर आपका स्वागत और अभिनंदन करते हैं। आपकी गरिमामय उपस्थिति ही बहुत बड़ा संदेश है आज की विषय वस्तु पर। आप ही के उद्धरण को मैं कोट करूंगा, ताकत अपने लफ्जों में डालो, आवाज में नहीं, क्योंकि फसल बारिश से उगती है, बाढ़ से नहीं। महामहिम, आपने ये साहस दिया है विद्यार्थियों को, शिक्षकों को और हम जैसे लोगों को कि आई वी कैन कोट यू, डियर स्टूडेंट्स, नेवर टेक टेंशन, never take stress, never fear to make a mistake. Maybe we are making some mistake today. I am not a stakeholder either with the government or the opposition. I represent you in the parliament and I am a stakeholder in your future. Honorable Vice President of India, while speaking at IIMB Bangalore recently. मान्यवर, हम आपका कर्तव्य ध्वनि से स्वागत करते हैं। हमारा परम सौभाग्य है कि हमारी कार्यकारिणी के अध्यक्ष माननीय केंद्रीय मंत्री भारत सरकार डॉक्टर जितेंद्र सिंह जी की गरिमामयी उपस्थिति हमारे बीच है। उनका सतत मार्गदर्शन एवं विकासोन्मुख निर्देशन का परम सौभाग्य हमें सदैव मिलता रहता है। हम स्वागत करते हैं माननीय केंद्रीय मंत्री डॉक्टर जितेंद्र सिंह जी, ऑनरेबल मिनिस्टर ऑफ स्टेट इंडिपेंडेंट इंचार्ज इन प्राइम मिनिस्टर्स ऑफिस, Personnel, Public Grievances and Pension, Ministry of Science and Technology, Ministry of Earth Sciences, Department of Atomic Energy and Department of Space, Government of India, and Chairman IAPA EC and friend, philosopher and true guide of IAPA, Dr. Jitendra Singh जी, सर आपका स्वागत है। बंधुगण, विशिष्ट अतिथि का दिव्य संयोग हमारा मार्गदर्शन करेगा, इसमें हमें तिल मात्र संदेह नहीं है। किसी ने कहा है, शब्दों का वजन तो हमारे बोलने के भाव से चलता है, वैसे तो दीवारों पर भी लिखा होता है वेलकम। आज का विषय सेकेंड डॉक्टर राजेंद्र प्रसाद एनुअल मेमोरियल लेक्चर ऑन द वेरी रेलिवेंट टॉपिक गवर्नेंस सेपरेशन ऑफ पावर्स, जिस पर हमारे माननीय प्रकाश डालेंगे और उसकी उपयोगिता, सारगर्भित एवं मर्मस्पर्शी विचार हमें मनसा वाचा कर्मणा नए तरीके से सोचने पर मजबूर करेंगे, ऐसा मेरा विश्वास है। आज की वक्तृता माला के जिनकी मेमोरी में किया जा रहा है, उनका एक कथन मैं जरूर यहाँ आप सबकी अनुमति से कहना चाहूँगा। बाबू राजेंद्र प्रसाद जी का, जो स्त्री के विषय में है, स्त्री माता है और इसलिए देश के निर्मात्री है, भविष्य उसी पर निर्भर है। यदि उसका सत्कार न हुआ तो देश का सत्यानाश हो जाएगा। भविष्य स्त्रियों के हाथ में है। उनके साथ की जाने वाली जाति हमारे पतन का प्रमाण होगा। ये माननीय राष्ट्रपति जी ने कहा था 18 फरवरी 1947 को रात 8 बजे रेडियो पर। 75 साल बाद जब हम बेटी बचाओ बेटी पढ़ाओ का अभियान शुरू कर रहे हैं, हमें इसकी याद जरूर आती है। आज हम माननीय अतिथियों के कर कमलों से हमारे कुछ प्रकाशनों का भी विमोचन का सुअवसर हम ग्रहण करना चाहेंगे। भारतीय लोक प्रशासन संस्थान का कॉफी टेबल बुक ऑन IIPA हमारी वरिष्ठ प्रवक्ता डॉक्टर श्यामली सिंह का मानस पुत्र कहूँ तो तनिक भी अतिशयोक्त नहीं होगी। उनकी सोच, कल्पनाशीलता एवं कर्मठ योगदान हमारे परिवार के अन्य सहयोगियों के मिलित प्रकाश का फल है, जिसे संजीवनी प्रदान करेंगे आज के मुख्य अतिथि माननीय उपराष्ट्रपति महोदय। हमें नाज है कि हम स्वनिर्भर हैं और अपनी कहानी अपनी जुबानी कहने में सक्षम हैं। IIPA कॉफी टेबल बुक उसी का उदाहरण होगा। अमृत काल तक के सफर के सागर मंथन का अमृत है यह प्रकाशन। विश्वास है कि सुधीजनों का आस्था भाजन होगा। त्रुटियों के लिए हमें निश्चित रूप से क्षमा करेंगे। आज हम बाबू राजेंद्र प्रसाद स्मृति व्याख्यान माला और हमारी स्थापना दिवस की पावन बेला पर डॉक्टर साकेत बिहारी के अथक परिश्रम एवं प्रयास को एक भारत रत्न इंस्पायरिंग वर्कशॉप डॉक्टर राजेंद्र प्रसाद के रूप में परोसकर असीम आनंद की अनुभूति कर रहे हैं। माननीय उपराष्ट्रपति जी के कर कमलों से उन्मोचन डॉक्टर बिहारी के परिश्रम को और स्वैच्छिक योगदान को परवान देगा, मुझे पूरा भरोसा है। और सुधी पाठकों को बाबू राजेंद्र प्रसाद के बहुमुखी व्यक्तित्व का परिचय दिलाएगा, एक छोटी सी आशा भी है। इस सभागार में उपस्थित माननीय सदस्यों का हमारे प्रशिक्षुओं और प्रशिक्षणार्थियों का, हमारे परिवार के समस्त सदस्यों का तहे दिल से स्वागत और अभिनंदन करने का मोह त्यागना असंभव है। मैं पुनः आप सबकी उपस्थिति लोक प्रशासन संस्थान के भविष्य निर्माण की नींव के पत्थरों का भी अभिनंदन करता हूँ। माननीय उपराष्ट्रपति के सचिव श्री सुनील कुमार गुप्त जी का आभार, जिन्हें हम पर न केवल विश्वास है अपितु यह श्रृंखला कितनी प्रभावी हो सके और समयोचित सुझावों के लिए भी हम उनका आभार और स्वागत करते हैं। सुरक्षा बलों का, प्रेस और मीडिया के बंधुओं का भी स्वागत है। किसी ने कहा है, हमारी महफिल में लोग बिन बुलाए आते हैं, क्योंकि यहाँ स्वागत में फूल नहीं पलकें बिछाई जाती हैं। और अंत में कठोपनिषद का ध्येय वाक्य उत्तिष्ठ जागृत प्राप्य वरान निबोधत, उठो जागो और ध्येय की प्राप्ति तक रुको मत, तसल्ली से तरक्की का यही मूल मंत्र भी है। तभी तो हमारे माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी का संदेश से मैं अपनी वाणी को विराम देना चाहूँगा। यही समय है, सही समय है, भारत का अनमोल समय है। जय हिंद।
Thank you so much, sir, for your succinct but very, very relevant welcome address. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the gracious presence of Dr. Jiten Singh Ji, Honorable Union Minister and Chairman, IAP Executive Council, with us. The Honorable Minister needs no introduction. Sometimes I wonder how he manages to pay equal attention to all the big ministries and departments under him, and that too so passionately. But then I somehow convince myself that it is beyond the capacity of lesser mortals like me to understand this superhuman effort. With this, I take immense pride to invite Dr. Jiten Singh Ji for his special address. Sir.
Honorable Vice President of India, Shri Dhankar Ji, Director General IIPA, Mr. Tripathi, Mr. Sunil Gupta, Mr. Amitabh Ranjan, all the dignitaries seated in front of me, my very senior and revered former Minister, Dr. Harshvardhan Ji, who's also been instrumental in getting us Mr. Ashok Prasad over here, the grandson of Dr. Rajendra Prasad, as was being mentioned by Mr. Tripathi. Mr. Shekhar Datta hardly needs any introduction. Mr. Shatri has been a role model for many civil servants. Mr. Srinivas, senior officers, members of faculty, ladies and gentlemen. थोड़ा कठिन काम मुझे सौंपा गया, क्योंकि मेरे हिस्से के फूल और मेरी पलकें भी त्रिपाठी जी ही बिछा चुके हैं। Like an early bird, he has stolen the welcome show. But nevertheless, it's my proud privilege to be here, sir, to speak in the honor of Vice President of India, who is many things rolled into one: an erudite scholar, an intellectual, an author, a legal luminary, a statesman, an orator. I can go on and on. And before I say anything, I think it's important for all of us to realize why holding this lecture named after Dr. Rajendra Prasad. B, why this subject, sharing of powers, and C, why it has been very thoughtfully decided that we would have none less than respected Dhankar ji to speak over this subject. Because the answer to part one is that it was none less than Dr. Rajendra Prasad who not only laid the foundation stone and did the inauguration of this institute, but also was one of the thoughts behind this concept and one of the founding fathers of the Indian Institute of Public Administration, which happens to be one of the earliest government institutes dedicated to this genre soon after independence in the 1950s. Secondly, also because it was Dr. Rajendra Prasad who had the responsibility of laying down the tradition of the Indian civil services and reincarnating the erstwhile Indian civil service into the Indian administrative service. And I don't know how many of us in this room realize that the very first Civil Services Day, which is now traditionally addressed by the Honorable Prime Minister, was actually addressed by Sardar Patel in his capacity as the Home Minister, because the DOPT then happened to be a part of the Home Ministry. And therefore, when I took over as chairman after the demise of our very revered Mr. Chaturvedi, who had been a guide and inspiration for us for several long decades before he passed away at the ripe old age of about 95 or so. The thought that occurred to us was that when we had so many memorial lectures, why not one dedicated to Dr. Rajendra Prasad? And therefore, we have this one, the second in the series, which we started very recently. And we have one of the progenies from the family to lend it its due credibility and due reverence. Second, sir, the subject of sharing of powers in the context of governance. All of us would appreciate that soon after Shri Narendra Modi took over as Prime Minister, one of the earliest dictums and the earliest mantras that he gave us was maximum governance, minimum government. I don't know how easy it is to define that. Sometimes it also sounds a little vague and ambiguous. But trying to put it in very simple terms, I think in a single sentence, perhaps it would mean a government which acts as a facilitator, but not as an intimidator. As Prime Minister once said, कि सरकार का अभाव भी नहीं और प्रभाव भी नहीं. You have a government which is there for you to bank upon, but not a government under which you feel pressurized. And for that, what are the prerequisites? Prerequisites A, transparency. B, citizen centricity, participation. C, accountability. And I'm glad to say in the last 9 years, several such measures have been adopted to achieve some of these objectives. We are almost now online. We have e-based functioning. There's a very little amount of human interface. And there is a very little room for or a choice but not to be transparent. Was happening in such an order mode. As far as accountability is concerned, we have switched over to a vibrant portal called CP Gram, which didn't exist earlier. The result of that is that when this government came in 2014, the number of grievances filed every year across the country, from whole of the country, was just about 2 lakhs. Today it is 20 lakhs or so. And our grievance disposal rate has now crossed 1 lakh per month, which is not a small number. So it's a government which acts with citizen centricity at the same time with accountability to its maximum extent. We have also involved citizens as instruments of governance, not only in decision making, but also in the grievance redressal. Besides that, in the last few years, there have been measures to also increase the spectrum of governance and capacity building in governance. And to that extent, I am also personally gratified that with the cooperation of Director General Mr. Tripathi and his team, we have been able to enlarge the role and the spectrum of IIPA. They are not only no longer training only the civil servants, but also now imparting capacity building courses to the elected people's representatives, be that the corporators, or the councillors, or the DDC members, because they too are equal participants. But what happened was earlier was that since they were not very much familiar with the nuances of governance, so most of the time would go waste in deciding which way the chair has to be placed and what was the protocol between the public representative and the civil service. We have tried to draw a very close synergy or samanvay, as you would put it. So considering all these things, the subject was decided for. And then the person to deliver this, I think none less than Mr. Dhankar. You would bear me out when I say that every morning, sometimes nowadays in afternoon, but seldom, you see him on the television struggling to teach us the lessons about the sharing of power. He is now become one of the best messengers, guiding the nation, guiding different segments of governance, where the line is drawn for which segment of governance. Sometimes you find him giving us cues about the limits of the executive, the limits of the judiciary, and of course, every morning these days, the lines to be observed by the elected members of one. So a person who has himself been a parliamentarian, who has been closely associated with the legal machinery of this country, who's also been into administration and governance for a long, long time, being a governor himself, and who has seen all the shades of this subject, I think is the best person to tell us how to carry forward Prime Minister Modi's call or a clarion call for whole of government approach, which I would say in a single sentence, the whole of government approach, which accomplishes optimum sharing of powers or division of powers among the different segments of government. So, ladies and gentlemen, like you all, I too look forward to listen to him and carry home some wise words of wisdom and go back this evening wiser than before. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your inspiring address depicting the recent initiatives of the Government of India as well as an overview of separation of powers. Your kind words about IIPA keeps motivating us to scale new heights and do better and better. Thank you so much, sir. Now it's the time for release of publications of IIPA. The first one is Bharat Ratna, Inspiring Works of Rajendra Prasad. Dr. Saket Bihari, the IIPA faculty member, has worked day and night and so hard to bring out this publication. I request the dignitaries to release the publication. The second one is a coffee table book on IIPA. It is compiled by Dr. Shamli Singh. She has done so well, so diligently, and so artistically. This book has come out as a once in a lifetime publication of IIPA. I request the dignitaries to release this publication. Ladies and gentlemen, now is the time we all have been waiting for to listen to the Honorable Vice President of India and President IIPA. Son of a farmer, the Honorable Vice President of India had a humble beginning, but through his sheer dedication and hard work, he rose to be one of the
Very good afternoon to all of you. It's always a pleasure to be here because it's a theater of learning and always gratified by what our Dr. Jitendra Singh says. A man brings on the table huge experience and he also reveals exposure to some of the most intractable situations with all you have grappled. Dr. Jitendra Singh ji, Honorable Union Minister and Chairman IIPA, Shri Surendranath Tripathi ji, I was rightly indicated by Dr. Saab that when it comes to an IS officer, never ignore the batch year. So Shri Surendranath Tripathi, 1985 batch. Shri Sunil Kumar Gupta, 87 batch, Secretary to Vice President. Shri Shekhar Dutt ji, former Governor. Dr. Harshvardhan ji, more than a former Union Minister. V. Srinivas ji, 1989. Dr. Ashok Prasad ji, we are beholden to you. And also to Dr. Saab. Your presence means a lot. Grateful for your presence. Shri S.S. Kshatriya ji, sir, 1980. Am I right, sir?
Agent, sir, agent.
Eh?
Agent.
Very distinguished people present here, members of the faculty and students. It is indeed an honor and privilege to deliver the second Dr. Rajendra Prasad Memorial Lecture. In a sense, it is a dream come true. Dr. Saab is remembered as the first president of the country. But what is more relevant and significant, he was chairman of the Constituent Assembly. And in that capacity, Dr. Saab set highest standards that need to be exemplified by all. Friends, as you know, Constituent Assembly was in session at different levels for 3 years. And during those 3 years, the world witnessed some of the highest quality deliberations, dialogue, discussion, debate. One thing that was missing from that theater was disruption and disturbance. Something that was just not seen there was confrontation. It was always working in concert. As president of this Institute of National Repute, I acknowledge and appreciate that IIPA brings administration and scholarship together. When I came here for the first time, and I gathered all the details by thought-provoking discourse by Dr. Jitendra ji, I have been keeping track of events. It's a fairly representative body, and the focus is in depth. In this Amrit Kal, and friends, the entire world is watching us in Amrit Kal. In this Amrit Kal, when the country is on the path of becoming the third largest economy of the world, we need scholarly foresight to aid administrative systems. It was in September 2022 when we had the honor of being the fifth largest economy on the planet. And that was a significant milestone also for the reason that in the process we overtook our colonial rulers. In recent years, the profile of civil administration has changed. It has become socially more inclusive, without meaning any disrespect to anyone. A very significant change has taken place in power corridors in last 8-9 years. It has been sanitized of power brokers. It has been sanitized of people who could leverage governance through extra legal means. And this is a great achievement that is having impactful reflection in our governance. Young talent from remote villages, from humble families, from marginalized communities is joining civil services. I have had the occasion to interact with trainees, and I can tell you, being myself from a village, having seen what education means and how difficult it is to get it, when I found the profile of those young trainees, this observation is a ground reality. These young people have closely seen the positive role that public administration plays in eradicating poverty and improving chances of realizing their full potential. A big change that has taken place, I can tell my young friends, that we have evolution of an ecosystem now. Thanks to affirmative government policies, that one is now unable to fully exploit his or her talent. Gone are the days when a young person could not translate idea into reality because lack of financial support or government policy coming in the way. That situation has 100% gone. It is also heartening to see that more and more talented young girls are joining civil services, ready to face the challenges of public administration. It is not only limited to civil service. The presence of this gender is being seen in all walks of life, including defense. And their performance is now becoming increasingly envy of my gender. And those who are from my gender, I can assure you, time has come when you need to give your best because you face a challenge which is formidable. Today, friends, India is on the rise. And I would say India is on the rise as never before. The rise of India is unstoppable. It is inspired by surge of aspirations and innovations and validated by the achievements of our citizens. Friends, certain things are happening in a very silent manner. For example, the concept of smart cities. But look at what has happened with smart cities. You will feel the difference. Another facet, aspirational districts. Identification of those districts that were a challenge to the people living there. And as the Honorable Prime Minister once reflected, no one wanted to be district magistrate of that district. Now, they seek to be there because they are inspired to deliver and things are changing. Look at from global perspective. People who know the world, who know the economy, who know the developments that are taking place all around. We are favorite global destination of opportunity, innovation, and investment. And why not? We have proved it. Our 90,000 innovators, startups are the partners in this astounding, phenomenal success. In this scenario, expectations of the people are bound to go up, and they must go up. As citizen expectations and requirements evolve and transform on the basis of development achievement norms, it is heartening to note that service delivery efficiencies and satisfaction levels are showing tangible results. Just reflect a few years back. There used to be long queues to make payments. We don't see them anymore. At a global level, we are a country that has effected unprecedented direct transfer to the citizen. And not only to the citizen, to a vulnerable class also, be it farmer or women working in Anganwadis. And that's a big achievement and a big relief. Direct transfer gets rid of human interface that has been capitalizing on those who needed resources or made available resources by the government but could have no access to them. There was something like middleman. This institution of middleman has disappeared. Dr. Harshvardhan is a keen student of science. Sir, we don't need to retrieve them. Extinction of the institution of middleman is fine. Today, the mantra of New India is less government, more governance. The executive facilitating ease of doing business with the larger objective of ease of living. I have seen it myself because as Governor State of West Bengal, I was heading a group of 10 governors on ease of governance, ease of doing business. And we engaged into serious deliberative session. And this is happening in every walk of life. But these are subterranean, silent developments that impact us hugely and that help us optimize our working capacity. The next 25 years are going to be crucial for the country. They are going to be crucial for the country, particularly because of last 9 years. In last 9 years, we have laid a foundation by series of affirmative steps that in 2047, where the country will be celebrating centenary of independence, we have to be at number 1. And my young friends will be there as warriors of 2047. Some of us may not be around, but we all are very confident. The kind of ecosystem that has come to be evolved and kind of stability that has come to be afforded, there is no doubt India will be number 1 in the world at that point of time. Friends, governance is a dynamic concept, and public administrators have to remain in tune with the changing expectations and requirements of citizens. Let me tell you, when there was telecom revolution, there was great relevance to the telephone booth. It has gone. That telephone booth that really changed our working pattern is no longer there. The mobile has replaced it. And those of you who are from tier 2 cities or villages, no marriage was complete without VCR, without VCD. That's gone. Even a Raddiwala will not take it for 50 rupees. So, governance is indeed dynamic, and so are the demands and expectations of the people, and corresponding obligation on those who have to deliver, those who are in the seat of governance. In coming years, emerging technologies like digital platforms, artificial intelligence, big data science, and Internet of Things will be an essential part of administration to meet demands of an Atmanirbhar economy as we become the hub of global value chain to facilitate a new entrepreneurial culture and to support innovative startups. Friends, another important qualitative facet of incursion of technology in our governance and life is subjectivity is reduced. The element of discretion is curbed and contained. And we have immediate data which immediately indicates wrong discretion or discriminatory approach. What has happened in our country is that involvement of technology in governance is exponential. As someone call it, explosively exponential during Modi regime. His emphasis on technological innovation, technological involvement has been absolutely with a passion and a mission. In the last 2 years during the COVID, not only did we gear up our own capacity to develop and produce medicines, equipments, and vaccines, set up hospitals, oxygen plants, we also developed digital platforms to monitor the spread of pandemic and provided all citizens with digital certificates of vaccination. I share with you the joy. And when world leaders looked at me, when I told them, in my country, Bharat, 220 crore people have vaccination certificates on their mobile. Even the best and most developed country in the world cannot lay such a claim. The government ensured that healthcare and social security was made available equitably, efficiently, and promptly to every citizen. Look at when we had that healthcare will be provided to citizens. It was just not giving fiscal assistance. You would have more medical colleges, more hospitals, more diagnostic centers, more paramedical staff, nursing colleges. So there was some kind of a plateau development in the health sector. And that has really been of greatest assistance to us when pandemic challenged us. India's medical prowess was acknowledged. And sir, you know it, Dr. Harshvardhan and the Honorable Minister. We are rightly called the pharmacy of the world. I will add an adjective to that. We are the most effective pharmacy of the world, giving the best value for money without compromising quality. When pandemic COVID challenged us, we did not forget our civilizational ethos. We supported more than 100 countries by making available our vaccines, and to many of them as friendly gesture. Many people were worried what will happen during COVID, particularly with respect to food security. No governance in the world can lay a claim which this country has vindicated on ground. From April 1, 2020, rice, cereal, pulse are available to 800 million people. And that continues. What could be a more caring governance in difficult times? While all this is happening, friends, I need to share, and I cannot help myself, but to share it with you all. Worrying trend before this August House. An intense assault on India's values, integrity, and its institutions is emanating from well-maintained incubator out to defame us. An ecosystem is being shaped and nurtured to combat India's growing global power. It is the favorite theme of some outside institutions to attack India's legitimacy as a nation state and its constitution. Now, what I'm saying next, I must preface it. I have highest regard for our industries. They are contributing to the growth of the nation. But even best of minds sometimes need to be cautioned. Indian billionaires, some of them, and intellectuals, unmindful of consequences of fallen prey to such pernicious designs by funding these institutions. Their benevolence can be more fruitfully utilized if they make financial contributions to our institutes of excellence, IITs, IIMs, rather than go outside. There is a need to reflect seriously on it. Why do they do it? I firmly believe as an individual whatever CSR fund is, it must be utilized within the country. I don't want to give out figures, but when I come to know that 200 crores have been given by a billionaire to an institute in the US, or in 2008, the government of India itself gave around 20 crores to another institution, we need to revisit our thought process. We do not need certification from anyone. We do not need approval from anyone. The best calibration has to be within the country by our own people, and we know the best. Elites in industry and intelligentsia, I make a fervent appeal to them to be thoughtful. This is certainly not accusatory. It is just caution, because their intent is certainly not against India, but they have to be a little more inspired to look within the country for their such contributions. Friends, first President of the Republic of India, Rajendra Babu, was closely associated with the making of our Constitution, as I said in the beginning. As Chairman Rajya Sabha, I relate to him. I remember him virtually every day. He must have had something very special in him, that he created a situation in the Constituent Assembly where most contentious issues, divisive issues, were thrashed out by deliberation, dialogue, discussion, and debate. And there was no disruption. Not to speak of what we see these days, the spectacle of coming to the well, showing flags. I appeal to the political spectrum of this country. Never underestimate the intellect of the people. They know all that is happening. They are very discerning. Nothing can be more concerning for them that when Parliament is maintained by public exchequer at huge cost and it doesn't function day after day. That is very painful to them. They withstand it. They want to hold us accountable. How paradoxical it is. They send representatives in Parliament to hold the government accountable, and they are entertaining a different thought at the moment. Divergent views. Parliament is a place for divergent views, indigestible views, reflection of the other point of view. There can be no greater freedom of expression for an individual than in Parliament. For a simple reason, there is immunity provided to parliamentarians from civil and criminal action. I recollect what Dr. Rajendra Prasad said on 26 November 1949. That's an important date, because on that day, he delivered his valedictory address to the Constituent Assembly, and his observations, in my humble assessment, have turned out to be prophetic. He says, every successive generation must remember, I quote, and mind you, those times, his position, what he had seen before his own eyes for 3 years, and the Constitution had crystallized, contentious issues had come to be determined. He says, I quote, a Constitution like a machine is a lifeless thing. It acquires life because of the men who control it and operate it. And India needs today nothing more than a set of honest men who will have the interest of the country before them, unquote. Through this platform, I call upon parliamentarians to introspect and reflect on what Babu Rajendra Prasad ji said. In this Amrit Kal of our independence, we should make honest appraisal in the backdrop of Rajendra Babu's serious observations. I have no doubt that all three organs of the state derive their legitimacy from the Constitution. It is expected of these institutions, organs, to be in collaborative synergy to achieve the constitutional objectives as enunciated in the preamble of the Constitution. Constitutional governance is about achieving dynamic equilibrium in the healthy interplay among the three organs. Friends, there will always be issues. There will be issues between the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. They are bound to be there because we are in dynamic times. But all these issues have to be determined in a structured manner, keeping in view the spirit of the Constitution, a sense of Constitution, and certainly not through confrontation. The democratic polity bestows lawmaking power primarily upon the elected legislature that reflects expectations and aspirations of the people. I have never been in doubt. Neither Rajya Sabha nor Lok Sabha can script a judgment of the Supreme Court. That is not the job of Parliament. That is the exclusive domain of the judiciary. Similarly, there are certain exclusive preserves for the executive and the legislature. There is urgent need for these institutions to scrupulously adhere to their respective domain. There exists a clear separation of power among these three wings of the Constitution. Primacy of mandate of the people, and why I focus on that. In democracy, it is will of the people that has to prevail. In our constitutional mechanism, this mandate of the people is reflected through their representatives on legitimate constitutional platform. And this, friends, according to me, is inviolable. Legislation is the exclusive privilege of the Parliament and is not required to be analyzed, assessed, intervened by any other theatre. And any attempt to undermine the intent of legislature would amount to a situation which will not be wholesome. And it will also upset the delicate equilibrium. I had indicated about constructive dialogue. But now, since we have seen in public domain that there are reflections emanating from those at the helm of these institutions in public domain, I would appeal that a serious thought be bestowed on evolution of a structured mechanism so that those at the helm of these institutions are in a position to periodically exchange their thought process, and that will generate bonhomie, much needed for the country. I would make a reference to National Judicial Appointments Commission as an example. There was near unanimity in Parliament. The entire Lok Sabha voted for it. There was no abstention. In Rajya Sabha, there was no opposition. There was one abstention. As constitutionally required, 16 state legislatures endorsed it. The Honorable President of the country, invoking her constitutional authority under Article 111, signed it. and it took the shape of a constitutional prescription. I, as Chairman Rajya Sabha, wonder what happened to it. No one has reverted to us. I am sure institutes like you and the people present here, the intelligence of the country would bestow attention on this. Basic of any basic structure, which is being often talked about, is the supremacy of parliament, which means supremacy of the people in lawmaking. Regarding the issue of concurrence of Chief Justice of India in the selection of judges, why I say so? When we had our constitution given to us by such illustrious Constituent Assembly, presided by Dr. Rajendra Babu, the constitutional prescription was consultation. By a judicial order, this consultation became concurrence. I want institutions like this, particularly in the presence of Dr. Jitendra Singh, because of Article 370. Article 370 is one article in our Constitution that uses the words concurrence and consultation both, which means framers of the Indian Constitution were alive, irrespective of the meaning of the lexicon, to these words, that there is fundamental difference between consultation and concurrence. Judiciary held consultation would be concurrence. On that, I am reminded what Dr. Ambedkar had on 24th May 1949 in Constituent Assembly, and what he said. I quote, "With regard to the question of the concurrence of the Chief Justice, it seems to me that those who advocate that proposition, friends, they discussed it, they deliberated it, that there should be concurrence. They reflected on it, and what they said is, those who advocate the proposition seem to be rely implicitly both on the impartiality of the Chief Justice and the soundness of his judgment." And Dr. Ambedkar goes on to say, I quote, "I personally feel no doubt that the Chief Justice is a very eminent person, and we have one at the moment. A man with unimpeachable credentials, a man of great learning, a man who has a track record of being exposed to legal nuances nationally and globally. We have one at the moment." He says, "I personally feel no doubt the Chief Justice is a very eminent person, but after all, the Chief Justice is a man with all the failings, all the sentiments, and all the prejudices which we as common people have. And I think now is a significant observation by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. To allow the Chief Justice practically a veto upon the appointment of judges is really to transfer the authority to the Chief Justice, which we are not prepared to veto the President or the government of the day. I therefore think that it is also a dangerous proposition." Unquote. Friends, there are people who do not share blossoming of democracy in our country, who do not share our joy of emerging economy, who do not wish to relish our growth trajectory, and they therefore want to throw a spanner. And they do it by taking to social media, writing articles, and holding seminars in the country and mostly outside the country also, including in institutions that are by and large fiscally assisted by our billionaires. And that being the situation, I would urge we have to be extremely alert, because if we do not act in time and we observe silence, then those who observe silence for too long, even if they are in majority, then the silent majority will be silenced, and we cannot afford to do that. Another aspect on which I want intelligentsia and people at large to put pressure on the political ecosystem. We don't have to look all issues with political partisan prism. We cannot afford. For example, a judicial judgment can't be seen in political or partisan instance. It has to be seen in the context of a decision by judiciary. In that perspective, I appeal and I find it imperative that members of legislature must distinguish themselves between legislative obligations and party compulsions. No one can be more intimately associated with partisan stance where public interest is required as the one who sits in my chair, either myself or deputy chairperson. Prolonged disruptions and disturbances as part of political strategy cannot be appreciated. How can something which is antithetical to a sense of democracy, which dilutes our democratic values, can be a political strategy? Our legislative bodies must provide leadership, lay down ideological contours for public policy, and guide the public administration for larger welfare of the society. And I say, with a sense of caution and concern, if the temples of democracy, the theaters where debate should be the main thing, if they yield to disruption, disturbance, there will be people around to fill the vacuum. And that for any governance or democracy will be a dangerous trend. The issues that are facing the country are required to be thrashed out and debated in the theaters. If they don't do it, someone else will do the job. And that will be not in consonance with the spirit of the Constitution. And we will be unnecessarily straining our founding fathers in heaven that we gave you such a precious document and you have taken recourse to something which is not available. Friend Dr. Rajendra Prasad had expected a set of honest men with interest of country before them to run India. We are having governance of which Dr. Rajendra Babu will be proud. Our bureaucracy is very different now than what it was a decade ago. We have power corridors, as I said, fully sanitized. We have seen those times where a particular position in the government used to be a really important position. But now that bureaucratic position is only a position of carrying out certain obligations. His one dream is coming true. In Amrit Kal, I expect everyone to ensure the cherished values of Babu Rajendra Prasad are not spoken by us, they are practiced by us. Friends, it is heartening to note that there is increasing reflection of the human face of governance visible from more inclusive growth, guided by the spirit of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Vishwas, Sabka Priyas. I thought many times, should I be saying so? Because there are people around to sensationalize that the Honorable Vice President has said so. What does he mean by it? I'm a citizen of this country. I hold a constitutional office. It is with firm conviction, deep belief that I use these words, because these have become a ground reality in the largest democracy on the planet. I wish all of you very well in your endeavors and thank the IIPA Chairman and Director General for affording me this rare opportunity to share my thoughts by delivering this lecture, one in the name of one of the greatest sons of the soil, who by his conduct, I am concluding, who by his conduct was always pristine, unimpeachable, impeccable, whenever it came to issues that others would think twice. I don't want to take you to those episodes, but they are indelibly imprinted in our hearts. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your mesmerizing address today. You have highlighted a range of issues concerning the separation of powers, including the delicate equilibrium between three organs of the state, as well as pointing out that rise of India is unstoppable. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much from bottom of my heart. On behalf of the whole IIPA, your speech today is a worthy tribute to one legal luminary, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, by the another legal luminary, Honorable Vice President of India today. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you very much. My heartfelt thanks to the Honorable Minister for gracing the occasion today and be with us today and showering the audience with his words of wisdom. My thankful tribute to everyone who has joined online. My thanks to all the participants today who are present here, including the Secretary to the Honorable Vice President of India and the Director General IAPA, as well as all those officers who have made this hugely successful. Thank you very much. I request everyone to rise for the national anthem.
जन गण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा इंद्र हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उज्जल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे लागे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगल दायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे.
Please remain seated till the Honorable Vice President of India departs.